Well, good evening, everybody. I'm just waiting for a few people to join us. So if you join and you see us here on live, just send us a little comment, send us a like, share the post if you don't mind. And just going to wait for a few people to join us, as I said, and see can I connect with Mr. Delaney. So, as I say, just coming on here now. How you doing, Manny? How are you? How you doing, Wayne? Jackie, Kay, how are you keeping? Hope you're all keeping well, enjoying that fantastic weather. There we go. Alan Bray, how you doing, Alan? I hope all good. Hope you enjoyed the wedding. How you doing, Stuart? And Sam, how are you doing, keeping, Sam? Delighted you could spend the time with us. Hello, Melinda. How are you keeping? Again, just see, can I just add here? Now. Anthony, how you keeping, sir? How you doing, Sam? How you doing, Hayley? How's things with you? So yeah, really excited about tonight. We're going to talk about depression, our understanding of it, the experience we have working with clients on a daily basis who come into our clinics with depression. How you doing, Stephen? And again, it's always important to point out at an early stage in these videos that, you know, we're talking purely about hypnosis, our model of the mind, how the mind works in our profession, and also, hello Teresa, how you keeping? And also how it affects so many people out there. How you doing, Melinda? It affects so many people out there, and we'll be able to give you some information about it. And also, well, hello, Derek. We're getting good at this connecting bit, aren't we? We're getting good at that.
It's getting easy.
Yeah, good to see you. Haven't really spoke to you in detail since last week, but it's good to see you again.
Yeah.
And enjoying the good weather there, Derek?
Yes, well, it's not so good at the moment, I don't mind, Daniel. Like, nothing but showers all day.
Yeah. Hello, Lorraine. Yeah, no, we just had some cracking days. It was very cold here yesterday, but geez, it's a beautiful day there today. So just waiting for a few people to join us there, Derek. Just saying, starting off here, you know, we're going to talk purely about hypnosis. Only hypnosis, our model of the mind. Hello, Neil, how you keeping? Our understanding of it, hello, Vinny, and how it affects people, I think on a much wider scale than, you know, what's possibly known or understood out there, you know. So again, we appreciate all the engagements. You know, we're very, very, you know, we're encouraged by all your lovely comments, all your wise words of, you know, support, and asked us to keep doing. Hey, Tim. So we're really encouraged by that. So it shows us that we're doing something right. But tonight, Derek, yeah, the topic is really, you know, and it's important to understand that in these early videos that we're starting off doing, that it's purely, we're touching on certain subjects, but we will go back through them in detail as we progress through the weeks coming. So, Derek, depression, what's your understanding of that?
And Karl, as you said there, you know, over the first couple of weeks, you know, I mean, we're just going through a few things, and like depression, as I always say, it's a big word, you know, and it covers an awful lot. And the amount of clients that I would have in, Karl, coming into the clinic, especially of late, funny enough, it's funny how as we talk about things, you know, the clinic seems to reflect it. You know, the amount of clients that I would have coming into me of late who were coming in for various other issues, and, you know, within the issues themselves is, in inverted commas, you know, depression. Those feelings have been going down. Depression, to me, Karl, in a nutshell, is feelings have been low and down, that lack of motivation, that heaviness people talk about, you know, the lack of drive to get up and get out. Feeling of just, as a result of, as I say, that, you know, the feeling of being maybe judged, the unfairness, whatever it is, the injustice of what's going on, the perceived injustice, the perceived unfairness. But it does tend to leave people, in a nutshell, feeling those feelings have been low and down, that lack of motivation, lack of commitment, lack of drive, that really just causes people to, you know, disconnect, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because, you know, I think, you know, it's more widespread than what people may think, you know, because I know, and again, you know, we're not medical doctors, but we are just touching on what we do. And, you know, for a lot of people we would see that coming in who have been, you know, diagnosed with depression or clinically depressed, whatever, you know, they have gone through their GP and they've gone through, you know, the certain tests that they do. And, you know, that they come up with the answer that you're actually depressed, you know, there may be a chemical imbalance in the mind, that's fine, you know. And we do deal with these people, you know, but we'll always refer them back to their GP to make sure that it's okay, that we work with them, especially if they're on medications as such. But really what I want to get into is that the amount of people I see, and I know you see as well, and I know all the clinics see, that come in on a daily basis now, it could be for panic or anxiety, it could be for confidence, it could be for stress, anger issues, anger management. And, but, since I've started this job, it always amazes me that the amount of people that we see on a daily basis, they arrive at the clinic with no emotional value, Derek, Now, and what I mean by that is, self-worth, feeling good inside, feeling great inside, in fact. And not just that, when you take away the distractions like, the money, the house, the job, whatever it is that's distracting you from who you truly are, when you actually look inside and ask yourself, am I emotionally happy? Am I emotionally worth it? Is my self-worth strong? And I'll be honest with you, I've never really got a yes to that answer because, as I say, once you take away all the distractions and people just focus on their own selves, they find it very difficult to say, yeah, I feel good enough and I feel self-love and I feel worthy, And so for me, my understanding of it has been really a bit of a journey because, when you talk about alcoholics, you can have a functioning alcoholic, you can have a non-functioning alcoholic, And I feel it's the same with this levels of self-worth and such. So you can have people who have been clinically depressed, they can't get out of bed, there's no energy, there's no joy, there's no nothing, and they're put on medication to try to suppress that. But then you've got a lot of other people who are functioning. So they're going around their daily, business, but they're using a lot of distraction and disassociation to remove themselves from how they truly feel inside. So an example of that is somebody on social media addicted to it, somebody who has a problem with food and, using food to comfort, and fill an emptiness inside. Alcohol, addictions. There's just so many different ways that people will distract themselves or disassociate away from the fact that they're not happy, What do you think of that, Derek? I'm sure you come across.
No, I agree. I totally agree because again, as I said to you, or as I said earlier there about people, disconnecting themselves from themselves in the majority. They have these feelings of being, as I say, low and down. They don't know why they're feeling this way. In the majority, they're on the wheel. They're going round and round and round, as you say, going to work, coming home from work, sitting at home, have their dinner, whatever it is. They're either on the phone or they're, look at, I don't know, as you say, Karl, maybe using other substances, maybe to escape from those feelings and emotions that are just causing them issues, problems. And it's that disconnection, I think it is. It's the disconnection, I don't want to use the word not willing or the unwillingness to deal with what's going on or deal with their emotions. But I think what's happened is, a lot of times today, we don't allow ourselves to deal with situations and types of situations because we have those distractions, because we have that escape in other ways. And that I think that's, for me, what tends to happen. I know I would talk to a lot of people, like you mentioned there, the addiction. I would talk to a lot of people, what I mean, who would suffer from addiction and that. And, any of them would say to you, like, why would somebody would say, do the same thing today that they did yesterday, knowing that it's going to cause mayhem? Because it's a better solution than dealing with the feeling and emotion. Yeah.
Even with the negative side effects of whatever they're doing. So, for instance, somebody who drinks too much, an alcoholic, and they're waking up every morning and they're maybe functioning, but they're getting up tired and groggy, and it's a lot of pain, a lot of hassle to go to work and go through a day of work and not functioning properly. But as you say properly, that the soothing or the benefit from the alcohol at that moment far outweighs the negative. Yeah. And that's a self-serving cycle. And again, that there's so many different ways of addiction. Somebody who's working 100 hours a week or 80 hours a week, they're constantly distracting themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think that's really important to get across. That we're talking really based on a lot of people who aren't aware that they feel down. And because we haven't been educated, you go to school to learn many things, but you don't go to school to learn about your emotions. You don't, and it is changing, thank God. We're talking to people now about coming in and do some work with them, school curriculums and all that. But in my day, in your day, you're just told to shut up and get on with it, and there was no emotion.
I don't mean to laugh, but, you know what I mean. That is,
yeah, well, it's just the way it was, And so for me, and even today, I asked that same question. Had a man in, very successful business-wise, but funny enough, he's nearly in his 60s. But when we start talking about siblings as such, yeah, the emotion came straight out of him, and the anger came out of him, and it's going right back to when he was much younger, and himself and his brother haven't really spoke most of their life, you know. So it always amazed me that this man, again, and he's a workaholic, he's constantly distracting himself, you know. But I asked this man, he's very successful, holidays every year, you know, financially secure, emotionally broke, if you ask me, okay. But, you know, again, the same thing, that he's distracting himself. But when I asked him that question there, take away all your distractions, your family, your children, your house, your money, your car, take all that away and ask yourself, are you happy? Are you know, are you at your highest value inside? And the answer is no, you know. And I know, and I lived that life. I was very good at it. I spent my first 23 years in life with no value, you know. And so I understand that if you lose your value at a young age, well then when you hit 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years of age, you get so used to the feeling that you're not aware of it. It's you believe it's part of who you are, and this is all it's about. Like I remember being like 21 and 22, going, is this all it's about? Like, I mean, because I wasn't getting the emotional joy out of life. I wasn't getting that, you know. Thankfully today I'm a lot better. I've done a lot of work, and you know that, Eric. I had to do a lot of work about letting go of the past and that, you know. So I suppose today it's just about really touching on different areas of depression, because it can affect us in so many different ways, you know. But again, it comes down to emotional value. You know, again, you can have all the money in the world, make you feel really secure, might make you feel good, but will it give you emotional value? No. Okay. And, you know, for me, my understanding of that is that, like a plant, you have to give it nutrition and water to make it grow healthy and strong. And I truly believe, in my opinion, in my experience, that you must give a human being emotional value so it will thrive and be healthy and strong, and, you know, live a good, healthy, strong life. And, you know, we're going back to the first 6, 7 years of life again, you know, because that is the most important time in any child's life. And again, unfortunately, we're not educated as parents. You know, my parents weren't educated, theirs weren't educated, I wasn't educated. So we just keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again, you know. The first 6, 7 years in life, and it's not the same for everybody. And based on the perception of the child in certain events, like a separation of parents, for instance, or, you know, the man that was in me today said that his father could never hug him. All he could do was give out to him, tell him he was wrong, wrong, wrong. And he even said himself, it was rejection, you know. And if you feel rejected from the people who created you, you know, your father and your mum, I mean, that will steal your emotional value straight away, you know.
Yeah, funny. I had a conversation with a gentleman today, a very nice lad, and I'm not going to get into specifics, but we were having a conversation about, we'll say, the generation before us and their programming, how they were brought up. Like in his own instance, for example, you know, dad would have, you know, reprimanded him, you know, pretty seriously at times, but it was always the case where he was being put down. You know, his dad would ask him to do things knowing he doesn't have the answer, and in the process tell him he was stupid, you know what I mean? That put him down for making the mistake he knew he was going to make, because there was no other alternative. And his father thought he was teaching him, in his own way, thought he was teaching him how to do something. You know, it wasn't his father's fault, it was down to his father's programming. So, and I'm not justifying it, but at the same time, that was his father's programming, to deal with him that way. To put him down, make him feel stupid so as he wouldn't make the same mistake again. His father didn't realize that by putting him down, making him feel stupid, he was depressing him. You know, he was depressing his growth, his emotional growth.
He was,
and he's today, you know, thank God, like, you know what I mean, we've done a couple of sessions with him. He's an awful lot better, but at least today he is the understanding, you know, that it wasn't personal. We always talk about it, Karl. It wasn't personal. His father, in his own way, did think he was doing right by his son. You know, he didn't know he wasn't. It was the old story.
The father knew no different, I take it. The father didn't know
absolutely no different. Because that was his program.
Yeah, and the chances are that's how the father was brought up.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. As I say, it's just history repeating itself, you know?
Exactly.
But again, just think about this, you know, the first 6, 7 years of life, we have to keep on back about this. You know, for anybody who doesn't really understand it, it's the most important time of any child's life. It's the most damaging time, but it's also, it can be the greatest time as well. Okay? And again, that comes down to the family you're born into, the ability your parents have, what challenges they went through maybe when they were younger, maybe has limited them in some way. It could be with affection or animation, or having the ability to tell you I love you, or hug you, or bond with you, or attach to you. And a lot of people didn't experience that when they were children. So therefore, when they grow up and have children, not everybody, because some people will break the cycle, but for a lot of people, they just sort of fulfill the same thing. History repeats itself. And again, if you go back to being 5 years of age and you believe in Santa Claus, well, if you have an authority figure like your father, somebody you admire and look up to, calling you stupid on a daily basis, or wrong, not good enough, looking with disappointment in his face, well, if you believe in Santa Claus, well, you're going to believe that you're no good, and that can, be triggered later on in life again. We're not saying that, a certain thing that might happen when you're 5 means you're depressed for the rest of your life. It's not like that. And I'll give you a good example of it. A session that sticks out in my mind, Eric, was a lovely chap I seen, well, probably about 2 months ago. And he's in his mid-30s, quiet fella, and perfectionist. He's a painter and decorator. Again, no details, but that's what he did. And he was flat out because everybody wanted his services because he was meticulous. Okay, this guy, if he made a crease in the wallpaper, he'd pull the whole thing down and start again. Yep. If he painted, got paint on a window, when he was finished, it was spectacular. Yeah. Okay, because he was terrified of making mistakes. Okay, and if he felt that he was going to make a mistake and the person who he was painting the house for was going to give out to him, he started to panic. Okay, so therefore he'd recheck his work over and over and over and over again. But anyway, the first experience of depression he had, or unfairness and injustice, okay, which will steal your value, okay, was when he was, I think he's about 5 years of age, and you come back, obviously 25, 30 years ago, but he was 5 years of age. There's a time when we had glass milk bottles anyway. You remember that, Derek? The glass milk bottles. Yeah. And himself and his sister were having a bit of a row in the hall, and the usual with kids, and we all did it, and getting frustration and all that. But they're having a bit of a row, and the sister got really annoyed, and she picked up the bottle and threw it at him. And it sort of bounced off and hit him. And he reacted, and he picked it up, and just as he was about to throw it back at her, his father walked into the hallway. So his father's perception of the whole event was, well, there's my son about to throw a bottle at my daughter. And the father bet the son up and down the hallway. Okay? Now, in the perception of the 5-year-old son, that was an event of a complete unfairness and injustice. And even though there was no logical reason in the mind of 5 years of age to tell him, well, Dad didn't see her throw it at me, he only seen me throw it at her, so I'm going to throw it at her. So therefore, the event of unfairness and injustice was born, and all the value was taken away in that moment. Okay? Now, he went through life and he went to school. He was pretty shy, a little bit of low self-esteem because his father was tough enough on him. And on his, I think it was his Debs, I think he was 18 years of age, he's gone out with a girl, madly in love with her. And I think they were going out about 2 years, and on the same night she went off with somebody else. Okay? So there was another massive trigger of unfairness and injustice. It was huge. Okay? But what it did was, it matched the same as when he felt when he was 5. All his value was gone, his self-worth was gone. He was angry, he felt rejected, he felt useless. But that was re-triggered at 18. Okay? And about 6 months before he came to see me, he went into his local bar one night, and he had a lot of friends and all, they played football, and as I say, he was well known for being a great painter. But when he went into the bar, the way you went to some bars, Derek, you got the bar and there's a bit of a partition here, and then you got the lounge. Yeah. But when he stand at the bar ordering a pint, he could hear his friends on the other side of that partition, and they were actually really, really taking him apart. I mean, insults and slagging him off, going, I'll get him to do it, he'll do the job for half nothing. So again, his own friends, that he believed were his friends at the time, another event of massive unfairness and injustice and rejection, which devalued him. And that was strong enough to put him into a bout of depression, where he couldn't work. He got to a point where he had no value. The reason he came to me was he hadn't worked in 6 months, because he just hadn't got the value. He didn't feel he'd go in and do a job and be good enough anymore. Now, I'm not to say now he's back working and he's fine. But, so just because you might have had the challenges in your childhood doesn't mean that you're going to be depressed from that moment for the rest of your life. It's normally re-triggered in life.
And I bet he doesn't do it for half nothing anymore either, Karl.
No, he doesn't know, because now he has self-worth and value, And the biggest thing that we got across to him was that it wasn't personal. The 3 events weren't personal, And I know for a lot of people out there listening, you might go, well, that's course it's personal. You know, they talked about him, and they, you know, the father bet him up and down the hall, and that girl broke his heart. And yes, it looks personal, but it wasn't actually a personal evaluation of him. It was a personal evaluation of the person who did it to them. And what I mean by that is that if the day that 5-year-old was born, he was mixed up with a different child, and that child went home instead of him, his father would have been the same father, you know? And if he had been in the same situation, his father would have done the same thing. So it wasn't because of the 5-year-old the father did what he did. It was because of the father's anger, yeah? And the father's own issues, you understand? Because to the father it was unfair and unjustified. So he got angry and hit his own son, you know? Yeah. And there's just thousands of different ways that can affect us, you know? You know, I find it hard to believe that anybody will go through life without having bouts of not feeling good enough or no value inside themselves and emotional value, you know. And again, it's like, you know, it always sticks in my mind, you know, when we meet a girl, or, you know, we meet a fellow or whatever, and we, you know, the first year or two is magical, you know, because we're getting recognition constantly from somebody who likes us all of a sudden, you know. You know, you're getting texts going, God, you know, it's great to see you tonight, can't wait to see you tomorrow. And that's sort of, now we're getting recognition. Somebody is telling us all of a sudden we're good enough, you know. And it's quite addictive, and we're texting back and they're texting back, and, you know, every time we meet and you're holding hands, and it's great because you're getting this real, you know, you're getting this recognition, you're getting this bonding and attachment with the person, you know. And you know, I think like anything, life takes over. You know, you might move in with the person, and 5 years down the line, you're not texting each other every day. you're now dealing with life's challenges, bills. You know, to put the bins out. You know, where, you know, did you mow the garden? So we're going out into this normal life, and the recognition sort of can cease. Okay, and what I'm really trying to get it to here is that just to build that awareness about people's emotional value. It's the richest currency there is available, if you ask me, you know. Again, it's nice to have a nice car and a nice holiday, and it's nice to have money that you don't have to worry about bills. But there's no greater currency than to feel good enough and recognized. And, you know, to have self-love there, you know, because I truly believe, you know, that's the nutrition of the body and the mind, you know, recognition and bonding and attachment, you know. And society, the way it's going, is now sort of, and fast forward, it's pulling that connection right apart. You know, social creatures have been becoming less social. We're getting further and further and further and further away from being social. So now we seek social media to get it. You know, people 25 likes, and we, you know, then somebody puts in a dislike, and it's like, oh my God. And you can see that tsunami, because you work with minors like myself, Derek, and you can see a tsunami coming. You know, and I know from talking to people in the schools a lot, both in the north and the south, that they're just having an awful problem with people's, you know, children's attention span. There's anger issues. There's the social media addiction, and even communication is becoming more difficult. You know, it's very difficult for people to feel comfortable in other people's company. You know, it's like it's just being all pulled apart. You know, and I think a great example of it is, you know, when everybody's at home, they're nearly all on the mobile phones. What if the power goes off for 2-3 hours? The phones go away. Well, the phones might still have charge, but you understand, once the electricity goes, there's no TV or anything like that. People actually start talking again and connecting again and telling stories again. You know, and I truly believe that's where we get that value from, you know, being accepted and being good enough, you know. And one of my greatest lessons in life was to realize that nothing is personal. And whatever life anybody out there might have had, whether it's been a really challenging one or not, just imagine the day you were born, you were mixed up with a different baby, they went home instead of you. They would have faced the same challenges as you.
Yeah. And again, you know my attitude towards it, Karl, when we talked earlier, you do talk about the way things are going, and as you say, there is a tsunami coming, is that inability to connect with others at a social level. We are social creatures, as you say, and we do need that social connection. We need it for our own emotional development, if nothing else. You know, because we do need situations where we'll say, you know, there is a bit of conflict, or there is, you know, a wee bit of slagging or whatever it might, not at a serious level, but a wee bit of it, you know, to help us emotionally grow and deal with that and learn that it isn't personal. You know, that, you know, it's not all about us, and the majority, as you know and I know, it's the other person's perception of the situation. You mentioned there, for example, you've 20 likes, and all of a
Yeah,
sudden you get one dislike.
yeah,
And all you're focusing on is the one dislike. You're
yeah,
forgetting about the 20 likes you did get. It's like the old story going into the room and you have 100 people and one person doesn't like you. And you spend your whole night
yeah,
focusing on the one person that doesn't like you instead of the 99 people that do like you. You
yeah.
know, like
Exactly.
the emotional value, where is it in that? You know, there is none. There can't be.
Well,
You
yeah,
know,
and
so
again, it's sort of that's a really good point about it there because that's why public speaking is one of the biggest fears human beings have on this planet. Going
mm,
into a room full of people, standing up and being prepared to be judged by a group. That's the biggest fear human beings have in life. Second one is heights. Third one is death. So we're more afraid of standing up in public, being judged, than we are of dying. Well,
yeah,
dying is hopefully a good bit away, but so really what I want to touch on now is just the difference between, because we did have a lot of questions coming in there during the week. There is some people out there, and no fault of their own, but they're just not, when they hear the word hypnosis, they just think of the swing and watch and the stage. And sir, I do stage shows. I don't do them as much as I used to. But that's where my experience, a lot of my experience comes from is the stage, but also the clinical end of it. But just to differentiate between the two, to anybody out there that just has the perception that, well, hypnosis is you on a stage and they turn you into a chicken or whatever it is, laying square eggs. It is entertainment at the end of the day. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be comedy, and but there is a massive difference between the show hypnosis and the clinical hypnosis. And I think it's just important to get that across. Again, each and every one of us within Irish hypnosis, we're guarded cleared, we're guarded vetted. We do CPD, we do supervision, we all have full certifications, we have insurance. So what I'm trying to say to you is, you're not coming onto a stage, you're not coming into, to look like a chicken unless you want it. But so you are coming into a professional setup. You are coming into people who have been educated and trained with the understanding of emotions and the subconscious. And a lot of people struggle to. There's a lot of help out there, a lot of talk therapies, and again, in my opinion, and through my knowledge and experience, that they're limited in their ability to get deep into the subconscious, to the emotional mind. So, for instance, I'm not picking any one therapy, but any talk therapy, it's basically dealing with the rational mind, the conscious mind, where your reason comes from, your logic, the ability to analyze, willpower, and short-term memory. And it's very difficult to sit someone down and talk to them week after week and tell them how they should be feeling without actually getting into the subconscious and changing it. And that's the beautiful thing about the work we do, Derek, is that we have that ability to use a process. And when people follow that process and are willing to follow the process and consent to that process, well, then they can be guided into hypnosis, a trance. Okay. And it's not what the trance you might think, you're not asleep, you're completely aware, you're more aware when you're hypnotized than when you're not hypnotized. But in that moment, we get access into the emotional mind, where all your emotions come from, where all your feelings come from, where all your habits come from, where all your beliefs come from. It's where your long-term memory is. It's like a library of your whole life experiences are in there as well. And also your protector. It's the part of us that keeps us safe. And you're crossing the road, gives you panic to let you know, hey, you should be looking to see, are you going to get knocked down? And so that's the real subconscious. It's a beautiful part of us. It's the real us. So we have the ability to go into that mind with the client. And obviously we've done a lot of work before the session in the consultation where we identify issues from the past or people in the past that may have hurt them or devalued them in some way. Again, like I experienced bullying. When I look back at it, I go, wow, it was so bad, it actually became normal to me after a while. It was like, on my very first day in school, again, I had my own challenges. I had buck teeth, I had big ears, I was so shy, I was quiet, I couldn't talk to you. So I was an easy target, you see. So, between the Christian brothers and the pupils in the yard, from day one, I was being kicked, punched, spat on, called names. But after a year or two, I realized that my emotions had numbed themselves way down. I became emotionally blunt. And that was a way of protecting me. Physically, I was getting hurt.
mm-hmm.
But emotionally, in order to protect my emotions, my subconscious just pulled the emotional impact down a bit. So, sorry, what I'm going to get to here is that, but in the session itself, we have access to the long-term memory. And if we have certain people who have hurt you from childhood onwards, or even throughout life, or It's not going to be a lot of different things. It could be 5 or 10 different situations. But we have the ability to go into the long-term memory and release the hurt, the anger, the pain, the feeling of rejection, not good enough. And we have the ability to help the client release that. And also to forgive everybody who's hurt them in the past. You're not forgiving them because you like them. You're not forgiving them because you agree with how they treated you. You're not forgiving them because you want to be friends with them. You're forgiving them because you now understand it wasn't because of you they did what they did to you. It's because of them what they did to you. You know, and you know, and I know, Derek, it's a stunning release for people. It really, really is. And they get that emotional value back.
Yeah. But very importantly, Karl, too, just because as you are talking about it, you know, like when somebody's suffering with depression or, you know, other emotional issues, it's not necessarily that something absolutely horrifically horrendous has happened to them. It's perceived injustice, perceived unfairness. Like, I'm not belittling what happened to you at school, Karl, don't get me wrong.
No.
But you survived it, do you understand? And another very good point I like to make is that in order for you to survive that, there's an inner strength within you. Okay? For you to have gone through what you did and come out the other side, there's an inner strength in there. And the one thing we also have the ability to do, and this is also for therapists out there, like I know you do it yourself, but it's harnessing that inner strength. So it's not just about removing the negativity, but it's reinstilling that positivity within somebody, because we all have the ability to achieve what we want to achieve. If we can imagine it, we can achieve it, as we well know. You know, the only block is if we can't imagine it, we can't achieve it. If we can imagine it, we can. Like, it's no more than yourself, Karl. Like, you've been through what you've been through. Look where you are today. You understand what you've achieved. You know, I spent my whole life, you know, achieving things for fear of negativity, no more than what you talked about. You know, I never once celebrated that achievement. And throughout my life, in fairness, don't get me wrong, I'm far from perfect. My wife will tell you I'm far from perfect today. But at the same time, what I am saying is that I would have achieved a fair bit. I would have gone on all right in a lot of areas, and yet never celebrated it once. Because once I achieved it, it was like, that's that done. Move on to the next.
So the risk of negative, you know, comments or whatever, or intrusion is limited.
Yes.
And I was the opposite to that. Would you believe that? That, you know, and it's really interesting that, you know, again, you know, it's not a sob story. I'm just trying to tell you from my own personal experience of what I went through. And you're right. If I had a slightly different perception at that time, it might not affect me as badly, or it might affect me much worse, you know. But the perception I had, you know, it sort of matched what was happening to me, because again, I had no value. I was going in, I was shy, I felt, I was, you know, stifled with anxiety. I just really didn't feel as good as anybody else in that classroom. I felt I had nothing to offer. And then when the teachers, you know, shouting at you most days, or either slapping you or beating you with a letter or whatever, they're reinforcing the fact that you're no good in your own mind. And then you go to the schoolyard and whatever, you take your money's taken off you for your lunch, whatever, you know, again, reinforcing the whole thing. But the thing about it was that I went into a world where I sabotaged everything then, you know. So basically, rather than people expecting me to achieve, I did the opposite. I sabotaged. And I didn't even know I was doing it when I did it. But it's only when I look back with the knowledge I have today. The reason I sabotaged everything was I couldn't fail. And that might sound strange, okay? But what I mean by that is that, like I did an exam at 15, my group certificate, not proud of it, but I'm always amazed to think that on that day, every day I went into the exam, I sat down and I wrote my name across the front, but as you do, and you had to wait 30 minutes. You couldn't move, you couldn't leave the room on 30 minutes at least, minimum. 31 minutes passed. Every exam I sat, I walked out and I didn't answer one question. Now, when I did that, I didn't know. I just thought I was angry, I was rebelling and all that. But it was actually much more interesting than that. My subconscious mind decided that, okay, there's two things are going to happen here. One is you don't do it and there's going to be a lot of trouble. Or you do it and you show everybody you're stupid because you failed and there's going to be a lot of trouble. so my subconscious mind took the easy route. It said, I'm not doing it. Now, I got into a lot of trouble. Trust me, my father was not happy. But he couldn't say to me, I'd failed it. He couldn't say to me, I wasn't clever enough to answer all the questions. It's irrational, but that's the irrational mind for you. You know, and,
you tried.
Yeah, and I remember even, you know, and my family are a great family, and they all tried to help me out and getting me application forms for interviews and all that. I never filled them out. I didn't want to go for an interview for somebody to tell me, no, you're not good. You understand? And as I said to you, only when I get to my 20s did I see the light. As I said to you, you know this well, Derek, I got to see a hypnotist who did enough in that session to help me see, oh, hang on a minute, it's possible to change how I think. And that was my journey into this field, you know. But it's really interesting. So, you know, as you said yourself, yours was about achieving. You had to go and limit the pain or the judgment by making it as good as you possibly could, by achieving it to its best, which would limit the negative evaluation of you.
That was me.
Mine was the opposite. Mine was the opposite.
You just didn't do it.
Mine was easy. Mine was easier, Derek.
Very good. Oh, no. But again, we're only having the crack here, by the way. I'm not, you know, this is not, you know, belittling anybody else's experience.
You have to laugh about it. But I suppose for the people out there watching, and it's great to see so many people watching it all. And we will, you know, after the show, as I say, it's very difficult just to, you know, read the comments. They go by really quick, or to even answer them. But we always answer them after the show. So if there's any questions there that you might have for us, just type them in. And we'd love to know where you're watching from and that as well. But again, you know, as I said earlier on, Derek, we're going to touch on, you know, we're going to touch on topics every week, and then we're going to go back and break them all down again, you know. So, so for anybody out there, I think that struggles, you know, with their own emotional value and all that, it doesn't have to be that way, okay? And it is possible from our experience and from what we do and from our results to release it, okay? You know, and again, stress, you know, there's another one for you, you know, and we will touch on this in much more detail, but just to give you a little taste of it, you know, when you look at the word disease, we were talking about this earlier in the week, Eric, but when you look at the word disease, look at the first three letters, dis, and then ease. So disease suggests that it's when the body's not at ease, okay, which would suggest stress. So when you're stressed, it's the opposite to being at ease, okay? So I think we all know that, you know, stress, we heard it so many times, can kill you. You know, and an important thing to talk about here is that you can't separate your emotions from your relationships. No matter whether you're in work or whether you're at home with your wife or at home with your family, you can't separate your emotions from your relationships. You cannot separate your emotions from your physiology. So it's proven, you know, out there, you can see the research that, you know, each and every emotion we have has an effect on the body, you know. So if we're living in a toxic world of negativity and not feeling good enough and no value, I truly believe that's a really, really, it's an unfortunate place to be for a lot of people. I think it's a dangerous place to be for a lot of people. And if they had the knowledge and the ability to release it, it's one of the most important things I believe anybody should do, is to deal with the past, go back and visit the people who may have hurt you or not, and forgive them and set yourself free. And I know you, Derek, we're living examples of it. Yeah. And the people that we meet on a daily basis, that this is what we do, you know.
Yeah.
So
very quickly there, just as I just said, stress. You mentioned it: stress, anger, frustration, disappointment. Another one, Karl. You know, the subconscious generally reacts in the same way to them. Feelings of being low and down, that lack of motivation, that dark, heavy place. You know, it is a protective mechanism. And as you say, you know, through release and forgiveness when necessary, well, in the majority forgiveness also, but through that release, you know, the symptoms are alleviated. You know, I wish anybody out there suffering the very, very best of luck, but, you know, I hope that everybody out there at least gains some understanding that there is another way, you know, because as you say, Karl, we're both living experience of it. You know,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just a completely different person than I would have been in my younger years, you know. But again, you know, if you think about what stresses the human being out, it's again, it comes back to the same thing: events of unfairness and injustice, you know. So I was talking to a lady there actually who got promoted, and you know, I won't even say what profession she's in, but a really important profession. But she got promoted into being the manager role. Okay. It was only when she became a manager she realised that, you know, a lot of authority figures now basically looking at her to produce the goods. Okay, so then she starts, you know, struggling with coping, trying to manage. But that wasn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem was her own perfectionist, you know, emotion. That she grew up in a world where, again, everything she did was wrong. So she had to perfect everything at a young age to limit, just like yourself with achievement.
Yeah.
But she had to perfect everything. So when she did something when she was younger, she'd check it 4 or 5 times to make sure that it wasn't wrong and she's going to get given out to it.
Yeah.
So when she took this manager's role, she couldn't just go in and do the normal manager role. She had to try to improve everything. But the people that she was trying to improve the systems with were not programmed to have her same mindset or her perception. And they weren't actually doing exactly what she wanted them to do. And she made herself very, very sick because in her perception, it was unfair and unjustified that these people won't do what she knows they should be doing. You know, and but it's an amazing thing, you know, she's actually in me again today, but when she left today, she left with value. She left with an understanding that just because they won't do what you expect them to do isn't a personal evaluation of you. They're limited and they can't actually, they're not programmed to do it.
They're programming, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was, as you know, I would have been the very same. I was probably one of the worst managers. I ended up in, you know, senior management, and I was probably one of the worst managers in Ireland for that simple reason, you know, is that, you know, my fear of negative judgment. And as you say, there was authority figures looking at me to make sure everything was okay. And as I say, I couldn't be a good manager because I had to micromanage others, you know what I mean, to make sure they were doing what I wanted them to do, you know, the way I wanted them to do it. And
yeah,
they're not programmed that way. So, you know, it's a dare I say it, and I'll say it again, when you get into that situation, or we'll say anybody in management or there, it makes you a bad manager, not a good manager.
Yeah.
That's all I would say. You know?
Absolutely, yeah. But, you know, I suppose for anybody, yeah, I think I just want to finish off maybe, Derek, with this, that anybody out there who has young children, you know, and, you know, at a young age, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, it's the most important time of their life. It really, really is. It's called the blueprint stage. It's where you set them up for the rest of their life. You know, their emotional value, their confidence, their belief in themselves. It's where they're set up, you know. And, you know, and no disrespect, but there's a massive problem out there with technology and phones. And you can see the damage where there's a 2-year-old or 3-year-old running around the house going, mommy, mommy, and mommy or daddy's on the phone all the time. You know, and the perception of a child, well then the phone, mommy loves the phone, not me. And I know it sounds harsh, but it is the reality of the whole thing. You know, these first 6, 7 years of life are the most important time of any child's life. It sets them, it's like a foundation in the house. If you get those 6, 7 years right, I'm not saying I did. I got them better than I would have if I hadn't been educated to it. But what I'm trying to say to you is, you know, really what we want to do is help spread this into schools. We want to spread it to parents that, you know, just to re-educate that it is the most, you know, it is just the most important time of any child's life. It's where you can set them up to be successful, confident, and to have emotional value, to feel connected and recognized and loved, you know. You know, like we see it all the time, it affects people in so many different ways. There's people I meet that they spent their whole life going out of the way to help people, just to get that thank you, to get recognized, you know. And then you got people who are terrified of making mistakes because, again, the negative judgment. So these emotions can affect us in so many different ways and have us do certain things in life that, you know, for me, I was a perfectionist at one stage. It was just very stressful, you know. Just like yourself, Derek, if anybody didn't meet what I believe was the right standard or something, I used to get very stressed. Yeah, and then when they'd leave, I go and do it the way they should have done it in the first place, you know. But look, once again, we're gonna switch off now in a moment, Derek. But again, really want to thank everybody out there for tuning in, spending your Wednesday night with us. Again, we're always hopeful that what we talk about makes sense to you. It helps just give you some understanding. We will go back over stuff in the coming weeks and just break it down and dissect it, you know. But again, the beautiful thing about this is, you know, whether you've been to hypnosis or not, and this is not about promoting hypnosis, it's about educating people, but whether you've been to hypnosis or not, you know, maybe it was successful, maybe it wasn't. That's irrelevant, because the truth of it is that everybody ever has gone into hypnosis on the whole world from day one to now has always gone in through self-hypnosis, okay? And you know what I'm talking about, Derek. That's, you know, everybody has the ability to go into a trance. Everybody has the ability to push their conscious mind slightly away so they can get into the emotional mind, okay? We've just never been shown how. We've never been educated how to do it. And if you think of the likes of mindfulness, for instance, like mindfulness is quite popular there. Because what it does is it gets people to focus on the now. So they're not worried about life in front of them. They're not worried about life behind them. They're focused on their heartbeat or their breathing, or, you know. So what that does is it takes their attention away from their own reality, maybe their own pain, and it focuses on the present. Okay. And now, my view, of course, that's fine until you come out of that state, and then you got the future and the past again, you know. And I know it helps people in great ways, but what I'm trying to say to you is we do have that ability. Everybody has the ability to go into hypnosis, well, let's call it a trance or such. And I think when you go to people who understand that and have the ability to do it properly, you'll be amazed at the results. It can be life-changing. We see it all the time, But again, I'm getting dry throat here. So again, we're just going to sign off again. So thank you so much for all those. Look, I read all these comments as soon as we're finished, and we'll thank you all as we always do. And again, thanks for all the support out there. Derek, have you something to add there before we finish?
Yeah, again, just thank everybody. Like, what I mean, through happiness, acceptance. You talk about it, Karl. Value of yourself. I wish everybody all the best, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. And listen, thanks once again, and talk to you soon. Take care.
Good luck.